You boys look like a weird heavy metal band.
Yes, we are a band.
Really?
Yeah.
So what do you play?
Symphonic post-apocalyptic reindeer grinding Christ abusing extreme war pagan Fennoscandic metal.
Right. Really interesting.
All right, DJ Nubis here with you on the Metal Tavern Radio podcast with my very special guest, Thrashpondo Pons. Sir, thank you for being here.
It is an honor and a privilege.
This man over here is a great gentleman and very entertaining with his content. So we were going to dive into what he does on his channel, who he is, what's he about. But first and foremost, as we kind of talked about a little bit on behind the scenes, you dodged that hurricane from a few months ago. So I know at the time you were kind of like a little bit worried. You were giving us updates on what was going on. So very much glad you're still forging on.
Me too. Like I said, we don't get hurricanes a lot up here in the whole Cape Cod area, but when we do, we take them very seriously. And fortunately, that one missed us. It hit our friends in Maine, but even they weren't hit too bad. So it was a blessing. We were very, very lucky this time.
This time.
This time.
So I've been following you for a while. We've been, talkative. And when I think I met you through Ian, through the Retro Serial, because I think you're good buddies with him. How's he doing? Have you talked to him at all?
Every now and then he stops by my channel. He's kind of taken a sabbatical. He's recently married.
Yeah.
And my guess is they're trying to do the whole newlywed thing. Kent says I blame him. But last time I talked to him, he's doing well. He actually posted a video not too long ago where he was doing karaoke and was doing a pretty fine job at it too. Also, I believe I met you through through Ian though, by proxy, but through that fat samurai guy, our mutual friend.
Yes. Yep.
Yes.
We're all like one big happy family.
We are. We're a fellowship.
But I do have to wonder, how come you and I have not collaborated yet? Because I would love to talk vintage horror and cult cinema with you.
That's an excellent question. I dropped a couple of hints, so I'm glad I'm finally on. Hint.
Yeah, it's like I gotta make my rounds, get everybody in there,
There's plenty to work with.
Yeah.
There's plenty of people, so I'm more than this guy. I have patience. If I have only one virtue, it's patience.
Same here. So your name, Thrashpondo Pons, is very interesting. So what is behind the name?
It's funny. It's obscure even for me. Long story short, as I'm sure my fans of my channel know, my favorite author of all time is cult sci-fi English writer Brian Wilson Aldiss, OBE. And he did a lot of really just amazing experimental sci-fi back in the day. And a character in one of his short stories, The Legend of Smithburst, was called Thrashpondo Pons.
Huh.
Now, my last name is Pons, so I go Thrashpondo Pons. It just had a nice ring to it.
Right.
So it became like my gamer name for a while, but it just kind of stuck as a moniker. And when I needed a channel name, it was the obvious choice. So I took it. And believe it or not, there's actually a couple people out there who've actually got it. They go, "Oh yeah, Legend of Smithburst," and I'm like, I thought I was the only one who knew that.
I need to get one of those shirts you got. That's like the Flash Gordon stuff going on there. That is sweet.
Thank you. Our friend Dave Sundstrom came up with this logo, by the way. And yet it's available on Spring again. Hint.
Go buy his shit. Yeah, we'll be sure to get the link from you so we can put it up there and the description and everything.
Super.
So you mentioned you live in Cape Cod, up there north. Now I am like very much into like sharks and stuff like that, and of course, Cape Cod is kind of famous for a particular movie back in '75. Do you ever venture out on the beaches over there, or have you ever seen the white sharks? I know they've been more plentiful out there over the years. So
Yeah, they started to become. It's funny because when I was a kid, I mean, we've always had sharks on Cape Cod, but it's usually like sand sharks and that type of thing. The
Right.
great whites didn't really come back in any real strength up until a few years ago. You'd have a sighting here or there, but it was like
Right.
all of a sudden, it was like the buffalo returning. It was like all of a sudden, and sadly, there have been a couple of sad experiences. There have been a couple of attacks. One person sadly was killed. But if you stay within restricted guidelines,
Yeah.
don't go out too far, go out in groups, that type of situation, they tend to leave humans alone. We're not their normal prey, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
They actually, and usually when they do bite us, it's by mistake. Now, of course, when a 15-foot great white takes a little nip to see if you're food or not, it ruins your whole day when you're a person. It's a little much to bear.
I didn't need
But
this hand anyway.
wouldn't you give your hand to a friend? But I
I
do
think
I
part
love
of it
the
too is the seal colonies got like because they started putting them on the extinction list. So when they
list.
got the repopulated, I think that brought some of them back. So
But between that and the changing, I guess the waters have gotten warmer, and
yeah.
great whites don't like warm water, so they've been moving more north. I heard that somewhere, but yeah, the big thing is the seal population. When I was a kid, if you saw a seal, it was a freak occurrence. Now they're everywhere. It's actually getting to the point where they are becoming a problem in and of themselves.
Yeah.
Fishermen don't like them. They're eating the bait fish. They're eating everything really, and they're afraid that they actually might have a negative impact on the ocean. It's sort of like the same excuse they use for hunting deer.
Right.
If we don't cull the population, it'll actually wipe everything out.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm not a zoologist, but it sounds that plausible. So yeah, but the great whites, they do eat seal, so that might help. They're actually the a marine biologist I know actually said it best. He goes, the apex predators are always the sign of a healthy ecosystem.
Right.
So if your ecosystem is getting back the great whites, you know it's on the rebound. And that's good because a lot of people were scared for Cape Cod waters for decades. So it is a good sign.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously, we become kind of intertwined between the seals and the sharks because if you're out there and whatnot, you take a risk. But if you don't have the sharks, then the seals get really out of control, and then it's a bigger problem. So it's like, yeah, you got to have them.
Here's one for you. In Wellfleet Harbor, about a week or so ago, they had a 15-foot thresher right in Wellfleet Harbor,
Oh
in
wow.
the inner harbor, not off the shore,
Right.
swimming around the boats and stuff. And that's kind of a wow.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't see many of those either.
No, not off Cape Cod.
So when it comes to your YouTube channel, like
Mhm.
what motivated you to create it?
Funny you should ask. This is actually kind of a great story. Now, as a lot of you know, Massachusetts was one of the first states to get really, really whacked by COVID. We were on shutdown middle of March, and again, I wasn't working. I could only go out limited time for groceries. I spent a lot of time in the house. You can only binge watch Game of Thrones so many times with your wife before you start to climb the walls. And one day I'm hanging out in my garage, but it's not just the garage, it's actually my den. I call it the bridge. And I watch old war movies and old sci-fi movies in there, and I have old comics, and again, it's my sanctum. And I'm like I said, I'm bored out of my mind, and I've been watching YouTube for some time, particularly Dave Sundstrom. He was sort of my mentor in all this. And I pull out my phone and I go, I don't know why I can't just make a YouTube post. I could probably do it on this phone. And I had no idea what I was doing. And I literally just, in fact, I now have two YouTube accounts because when thought I was logging into my first one, I opened a second one.
I think
So
I
now I
did
have
that too, actually.
I have a business and a personal account. But I log on to YouTube and I made this sort of like stream of consciousness, like 45-second post, and I sent it. And I went back into YouTube and I played it, and I'm like, oh, look at me. I actually made my own post. I was like a kid with a new toy. And
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? I could actually do this for fun and profit. Now, as it has turned out, it's been more for fun than profit.
Right.
but I ran with it, and it's so funny because I put out a couple of videos and they were super unpolished. Honestly, I think that's kind of my shtick. I mean, I think the whole conversational ad lib thing kind of works for me. Some people say I'm not as funny when I'm rehearsed, and I think I can actually see that myself. I'm too busy trying to hit the cues and actually get the news out, as it were. But I contacted Dave Sundstrom, speaking of which, and of course he has 100,000 followers at this time, and I had seven, not 7,000 followers. I had actually the number 7 followers. And I said, Dave, what are you doing? Dave, what could you look at my channel and tell me what to do differently? And I expected some cursory, hey, just keep doing what you're doing, kid, advice. He actually went into my channel, he watched my videos, and he critiqued them. And I'm like, and I took his advice, most of it at least, because I still hot
Right.
dog a little.
Yeah.
But I did, and I actually things started going up, and that's of course how I met Ian.
Mhm.
And Ian and I started doing collabs, and then we started doing collabs with Dave, and through him I met Pat and Barry, and now we have this whole sort of retro pal loser thing that we do, and it's come a long way. I still haven't been able to monetize. In fact, hint hint, maybe some of you folks could like and subscribe my channel too. Hint
There you
hint.
go. Yeah.
But again, they say you have to do it as a hobby. If you start doing it as a job, particularly before you're monetized,
Yeah.
it'll crush you. But for me, it's my hobby, and I have close to 300 videos now.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
And
yes.
I think what's really cool is, and I'm always amazed because I'm good friends with Sci-Fi Century, another YouTube guy, and like you, he doesn't have necessarily a lot of subscribers. But one thing I noticed about between you and him is when you guys do your live video feeds, you have a very active chat, and I find that to be very important. Like that's really fun because I go in, I pop in on your stream, and like, dude, they're just people talking and asking you questions and having a good time, and that's important, man. Like and sci-fi is the same way. He's like, I don't really care about making this like a full-time thing or anything, but I watch like how many people view his videos and versus his chat, and that's the what does he say? The quality is better than the quantity. You know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying. And it's funny you mentioned the live chats. The first live chat I did was almost as a joke. Because I had done live chats with Ian, and I'd even done a couple with Dave, but I'd never done with myself. And I didn't even have StreamYard, but I noticed YouTube has a live chat option. And one day I'm just bored, and I went on, and it was like without a net. I had no topic. I didn't even know who was there. I didn't even know if they'd be able to find me. But I just went on there, and people stopped popping in saying, "Oh, Thrash, you're doing a live show. Why didn't you tell me?" I'm like, "It's because it's a surprise to me too." But it was so much fun. It was almost like you're sitting on a couch, channel surfing, and 20 friends show up, and you just start having a live chat about Godzilla or
Hmm.
about an old TV show that no one's heard of or old sci-fi books, and after an hour or so they just leave. So you're stuck with them all night.
Yeah.
It's a nice break in the night, but never gets old or cumbersome. Now that's not to say they can't go on for some time. Retro Nerd Girl has done 7-hour live chats, and I don't know how she does it.
Oh, yeah, that's
My
brutal. I
back
mean, I
starts to
did
hurt after an hour and a half.
we did the whole like ranking all the Godzilla films the one night, and that was like a 6 to 7 hour thing. And dude, we were exhausted by the time it was done. That was brutal.
I mean, hats off to her, but I don't know how she does it. I
Yeah.
don't. She must have an inner strength I just don't possess.
Now, you speaking of you're not monetized yet. Is that something you're shooting for as a goal, or you just
Yes,
kind of okay?
yes. When I get over 1,000, I'll start crafting more videos to increase my number of watch hours. And I think I can actually do it once I get over 1,000. I think I can do it comparatively easily. Because again, it would be nice to make a few bucks here and there
You're right.
off your hobby. So I would like to get monetized, or at least discovered by a
Yeah.
talk show.
Yeah.
Become a sidekick on the Daily Show or something like that.
Well, you were. I remember because you were on a couple of Ian streams, like you mentioned, and I remember you were the guy in charge of the chat and so putting up the comments, and like it was like you guys were trying to figure out how to do it right, and it was kind of funny just watching you try to make that work. But yeah, that was cool.
Well, the funny thing, because Ian would address each comment, much like Retro Nerd Girl would do. And the problem is they're coming in so fast that if
Yeah,
you have a very detailed interaction with your first comment, you're going to miss 15 or 20. And sometimes people get actually hurt when you miss too many of their comments because people put a lot of thought into these sometimes.
right.
And, they do understand you can't get to all of them, but it's like, dude, I was interactive with you all night, and all you did was talk about the first and last comment, which weren't even that creative. So, you have to kind of balance it. It's a balancing
Right.
act, which I'm sure you've seen firsthand too.
Yeah. I mean, you can't get to everything. I mean, obviously, right now, because when I do live streams, it's not as active. But like you take like a guy like Samurai or someone who's bigger, and it's just rolling. You can't take everybody's comments, and so then some people that are so big, I noticed this like legal tubes and stuff like that. They have to do super chats, the ones that are mainly paying for money, because those are the ones you have to get out of the way.
Oh,
you know,
yeah, that would make sense.
yeah.
But what to have that many people? Because again, I usually have about 30 people in my live chat, but to have so many that you have to stick with the super chats, they must have like 1,000
Oh, easily. Yeah, they'll
easily.
have like 15, maybe to almost what 2,000 viewers and people active. So that's I couldn't even. I mean, they usually have like what 3 or 4 mods that are running that. So like it's nuts. Yeah, it's
They'd have
crazy.
to.
Yeah.
They'd have to. That's crazy. That's crazy. I mean, like the other day, I was checking my previous night's live stream, and I had 1,200 comments, and I'm like, I don't know how I got them through them all.
Dude,
Because
that's awesome.
1,200 in the span of about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Now you have to kind of cherry pick, but I'm like, how did I get through 1,200 comments? That's basically 800 an hour.
Yeah, and that's see, you're right though, because the balance of it all, like I haven't ever got to that point in my stuff like you, but I give you a lot of credit. You try to go through as many comments as you can, but at the same time, like if you're spending too much time answering questions, you're not really, unless your topic is just like general, like you say we're just gonna shoot the shit.
Stream of consciousness.
But if
That's
you wanted like a specific topic that you were talking about, like you started your channel for the live stream and you were talking about Godzilla or something, and people were asking you about the next sci-fi film or whatever, it really doesn't apply to what you're trying to discuss. So yeah, it's kind of tricky because you don't want to hurt their feelings, but it's like, dude, we're here to talk this. We should be asking questions about this.
yeah, no, you're right. And one thing I have noticed is just because of that, I do topics a lot of my live chats, but a lot of time I'll even say general topic, just say whatever you want because one of two things will happen. I'll have a topic and people will stay on topic but ask questions that kind of sidetrack us, or they do live stream of consciousness anyway. So
Right.
sometimes it's easy to just run with it. Besides, every now and then I'll pick what I think is a great topic, and it has no traction.
Yeah.
Whoever shows up that night. One night I did zombie movies because it's my forte, and nobody knew. Forget wanting to talk about it. Nobody who was on that night watched zombie movies. So I'm like, you can listen to me, which I love the sound of my own voice. I'll grant you, but it'd be much more fun if we just talk about something else or how it pertains to this or that or that type of
Right.
thing. So I try to fly by the seat of my pants. I think is what I'm trying to say in the broad strokes.
I totally agree. So like it's interesting because you mentioned how you came up with Thrashpondo Pons. Uh, I know when you and I have been kind of chatting either on your streams or Ian's or somebody that you are into music a little bit.
Yes, very much
Uh,
so.
and I think you are a rock and metal guy to some degree. So
Mm.
how far in that genre do you go for yourself? Like, what do you listen to if you do?
Well, I must say, my taste in music is very similar to my taste in film. Vintage
Wide
all the
palette.
way. Yeah. Now I do listen to some contemporary music, but it's not the love of my life. Most of my music, I mean, if I had to pick, it's like the old question. If you were on a desert island and had to pick only 10 albums and presumably had a solar powered record player, what would you bring?
Right.
Everything would pretty much come from the 70s and 80s. So I mean, if I was to pick my metal, it would all be vintage. It would be like early Metallica. Y- I saw on one of your channels posts rather you mentioned a Judas Priest. I'm
Mhm.
like, I used to love Judas Priest, but again, we're going back to when I was in high school.
Right.
Um, do they even have anything new? Are they still recording at all? I wouldn't even know. So yeah, to me, I would because believe it, a lot of bands are still recording now. As one person said it best, it's really tribute bands at this point.
Mhm.
Like Foreigner, I think they only have one original member still left, and he only does like 1 out of 3 shows.
Right.
But again, and don't laugh when I say this. When I think heavy metal, you know what my first thought is? The movie Heavy Metal soundtrack.
Oh, yeah. Right. It's a lot of great music on there, man. A lot of great music.
It's when I say, is there a soundtrack that rivals Guardian of the Galaxy? Yes, heavy metal. Now, a lot of the stuff on there isn't heavy metal, as you and I both know, but that's what I think of.
Well, yeah, and I don't really get too picky about that because for me, even growing up in the '80s with all the hard rock and hair rock bands, like that to me was kind of like a different subgenre of metal. Even though it's all like rock oriented, it's still part of it. They all kind of tie in together. So I have no problem with any of that. I grew up in the '70s listening to a lot of classic rock like Zeppelin and Blue Oyster Cult and stuff like that. So
Oh, Blue Oyster Cult is one of my favorite bands of all time.
yeah. So,
All
like,
time.
I have a pretty wide palette. I mean, I don't listen to country. It's just something I can never really get into. I don't listen to much
Same here.
popular stuff, but there are occasional like I do have a love for like '80s pop music, stuff like that. So there's different things out there, but rock and metal is mainly my forte, as you know.
Yeah. So, oh,
All right.
one thing. I seem
But
to have frozen, by the way, so don't think I'm
yeah,
ignoring you, by the
no,
way.
no, no.
Well, shall we press on with me in still shot?
Yeah, that's fine because I can hear you fine. Everything's fine, so
Good,
that's not a big
good,
deal. Yeah.
good. Spirit is
So
good.
what are some of your favorite film genres? Like obviously horror is one of them, obviously, but what else do you like a lot of?
Horror and science fiction are a definite. Um, I also have an affinity for old war movies.
Okay.
That's why I call my den the bridge. In sci-fi films, they're always talking about the bridge, trying to get to the bridge. We've lost contact with the bridge, and my old credo as far as war films go is any war film with the word bridge in the title is a good one. You got the bridge too far, bridge at Remagen, bridge on the River Kwai, the bridge. So those are possibly I wouldn't say my favorites, but they're certainly up there. Long story short is that I don't know if you know. I was a history major in college. I've always been a huge fan of history,
Oh
and
wow. All right.
always felt that history maybe shouldn't necessarily be taught through film, but if you want to give people a feeling of the flavor of the period, you should see film. If you're studying World War One, see Alcorn on the Western Front. If you're studying, I don't know, Japanese cinema, see Fire on the Plains. Or if you're
Mhm.
looking for anime, Graveyard of the Fireflies. I always feel that film is an excellent way to enhance a historic experience. So those are definitely up there. I think what else? Yeah, dramas are always great, particularly vintage drama. Things like Casablanca, old noir films. I've always had a love for. Um, and vintage comedy. But the reason that I think I love sci-fi and horror so much is because when I was a kid, and we're going back over 50 years, my parents were still married. Um, my dad worked really long hours, but he was always home on Saturday morning. Sometimes hungover, usually, but he was always home. And our ritual was we would watch Saturday cartoons together. This is back when TV had Saturday morning cartoons. And then afterwards, there was a local station in our area that had Creature Feature. And they always showed some schlocky horror or sci-fi movie. And we always watched them together. And it was like possibly the coolest memories I have from when my parents are still married. So I think that is what gave me my lifelong love of horror and science fiction.
Very nice. Now,
Mhm.
I know with your channel, like you have a very sort of nostalgic approach to things. So,
Mhm.
uh, I'm gonna kind of go through some of the stuff that you do on your channel. So,
Please.
obviously, you're a big jokester, like to tell jokes. You have a lot of stuff detailing jokes of the past and whatever. What is that all about? And like, why did you come up with that kind of concept for one of your segments?
Well, funny you should ask. I'm a bartender by trade, and I've always felt bartenders should have a good joke on hand in a given moment to sort of like liven the crowd, maybe to diffuse a situation if something's getting uncomfortable or grim. I think the bartender should be as much of an entertainer
Right.
as a mixologist.
Hmm.
And I've also been something of a ham as far back as I can remember. Whenever we had family over or guests, I always felt compelled to entertain them, and would tell them jokes I would steal from situation comedies and stuff. I've always wanted to be something of an entertainer. Well, anyway, one now, of course, as you know, when my channel started, it was all vintage sci-fi, horror, literature, film because I've always been a film buff, as we were just discussing. In fact, back in the old days, before YouTube, when there was when there was local access TV, I had a film review show on local access TV. It was called The Real Deal.
Oh wow.
So I again reviewing movies and also old books was just my forte. But one week, and of course, Dave always said, make sure you put out new content every week. Whatever you do, you never want to get stale. Make sure there's something new every week. And the week was getting away from me, and I had nothing. I hadn't read anything. I hadn't even seen a movie. I hadn't rewatched it. I had nothing to do. And I go, you know what? I'm just going to tell a few old jokes. And I cobbled together just almost at random 10 old jokes I'd either gotten from old Dixie cups, from, joke books, whatever. And I just did them in a top 10 list. And as I'm sure you noticed, that shtick I shamelessly borrowed from an old SNL bit where the guy, he's supposed to be a 19th century review critic. And he would read a card and then just go, next. And I borrowed that from this SNL bit and I just rattled them off. And I got like a lot of positive feedback. Like, man, you're good at telling jokes. Man, did you write all these yourself? I mean, wow, these were funny. I actually got more positive feedback on this impromptu dad joke sketch than I had from like my last couple of sci-fi reviews. And I'm like, I couldn't bring myself to switch over entirely to comedy, but I'm like, I think I'm going to milk this. I think I'm going to incorporate this into my channel, and I have. And as you've noticed, it usually gets some really solid feedback.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the cool thing about it. Like people really dig it, and it's funny as
Mhm.
hell. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's a good job on your part there with that.
Thank
Because
you.
I and that's a cool thing too. Because like there's not anybody that I know, and like that doesn't say there's other people doing similar things, but there's nobody I know personally in our circle of people that do what you do with that, which is very cool.
Thank you. Thank you.
You have another little cool series called Creepy Classic Series. What is that about?
Well, it was funny. One day, now there's a lot of really great music out there, and a lot of it is very upbeat and catchy. But when you actually stop and listen to the words, and you actually find out what the song's about, suddenly it's not so fun anymore. And
Yeah.
I was coming home from work one day, and the old Helen Reddy song "Angie Baby" came on. And I remember my mother loved Helen Reddy. She actually had that album. She played it literally until the stylus cracked.
Mhm.
And I remember thinking, I go, even as a kid, going this when you try to sing along the words, I'm like, this sounds a little sketchy to me. So, thanks to YouTube, I decided that I was actually going to listen to it in its entirety. And it's actually, and I did a whole post on this. It's a really creepy song. It's about a mentally ill girl who is like basically trapped in her room by her parents. And one day a boy comes by when her parents are out to do lascivious things to her. And she somehow manages to use either witchcraft or some type of dark magic to trap him inside her radio and keeps him as a pet. And I'm like, this is a really disgusting, creepy song, but it's this Angie baby, it's like the really really upbeat number,
Yeah.
and I posted that, and I never envisioned it as a series. It's just something that occurred to me one day, and people started making suggestions. Have you heard this song? Have you heard that song? And I'm like, holy cow! There's a lot of really fun, upbeat songs that are really kind of
Yeah.
disturbing when you listen to them. Most recently, Smooth Criminal by Michael Jackson. When I actually listened to the, because I've always, I'm sorry, I'm a geek. I loved the album Bad, even when it
Yeah.
came out 35 years ago. But Michael Jackson's song, and other people have said this, it's about the beat and the energy, not so much the lyrics. Someone made a joke actually when they think of the song "Beat It," they actually sing along to the words of Weird Al because them they remember. They don't remember the actual Michael Jackson lyrics to "Beat It." And so I had the radio on. I still listen to the radio in my car. I had the radio on, and Smooth Criminal came along, and I'm like trying to sing along to it, and I don't know the words. And when I went home and listened to them, I'm like, holy cow!
Yeah.
And here's another show. So it ended up becoming a series, and I'm sure there's more out there I hadn't even thought of.
So now you have something sort of similar called the song lyrics. Is that sort of the same thing, or is that something entirely different when you do the music talk?
Well, they're two cubs of the same litter.
Mhm.
That's based again on people knowing songs and loving them, but not always knowing all the lyrics. In fact, even when they know most of them, there's always one line. In fact, I had a calendar years ago. It was misheard song lyrics. And they'll take like a song that everyone knows the words, but there's that one line nobody does, and they just go like, "Brr, brr, brr, brr." And so what I did was I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of songs like that. There are songs people all know and love, but they don't. You can tell they all just kind of flub or sort of like fake one particular line. So what I did was I would sift through old '80s top 40 songs, and I go, wow, I never knew that was that line. Oh, I never knew that was that line. Oh, I didn't know she said that here. And so what I did was I asked people like according to, oh, I don't know, according to Journey, what are you never supposed to stop doing? Now, of course, we're all going to say believing because I made this really easy. But I gave 10 questions, and I don't give the answers. I give the answers on the following post. You have to go to the next post to actually see if you were right or not. 'Cause I figured that'd be a twofer. Now, here's the funny thing. A lot of people just went right to the answers, which I thought defeated the purpose. But to own their each, why keep somebody in suspenders? But yeah, a lot of it is based on the fact that while we all love music and we all love songs, sometimes our memory of the words are a little gray in spots.
Yeah. So you're also very much into comic books.
Huge.
What all do you apply to your channel with that?
Well, I must confess, another friend of ours, Mr. Denny Staten, he started doing read-alongs with comics. And of course, he's an even bigger comic book fan than I am. I have a couple 300. He has in the thousands.
Wow.
And he was doing this shtick where he would start with a comic and he would kind of read along and paraphrasing, kind of giving you the gist of what was going on. But having a lot of fun, putting words in people's mouths. And here we see this guy trying to stab his dog. No, wait, it's a werewolf and that type of thing. And making fun of half the fun of those old 70s comic books are the advertisements. There were some really crazy things they tried to sell you in comic books 50 years ago. And he had so much fun doing it. I'm like, I've got to give this a try myself, actually. And so, yeah, I call them wretched recaps. And what I do is I'll take an old comic, or better yet, Mad Magazine. I was actually devastated. I recently found out Mad Magazine has been canceled.
Yeah, yeah.
And that actually broke my heart. Now, it's partly my fault. I haven't bought a Mad Magazine in years, but
When
it
did
was still
they
always there.
when did they stop? Because because I do remember them from the 70s and 80s, but
Hmm.
like I didn't know they were still around till now. What, like, when did they stop?
Well, they'd pretty much been reduced to just putting out special editions a few times a year.
Right.
And so they had been on the back foot for some time. I want to say it was 2 years ago, because a friend of mine actually wrote an article about it on his
Oh, okay.
online magazine. I don't know if I've mentioned Gamelon magazine. Gamelon,
Gamelan.
as in the Star Blazers. He has this online magazine called Gamelon. I've actually written some articles for him myself, actually.
Huh.
But he wrote about it's the end of an era. Mad Magazine, which was like one of the longest running satirical magazines, journals of all time, they pulled the plug on, and it just, my world didn't make sense. So I pulled out some of my old Mad magazines. I have a bunch from the 70s and some
Nice.
from the 80s. And again, I would just read through them. Now, you have to be careful because Mad Magazine always pushed the envelope.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Always.
That's
And
what I
some of
loved about it.
oh, me too, me too. But a lot of their humor wouldn't be considered what one would call politically correct
Oh
today.
yeah, yeah.
And so
Different
you
time,
have to
different
kind of
era.
be, yeah, you have to kind of be careful when you do retro recaps with that. But
Yeah.
they're a lot of fun, and the humor does still stand up to this day.
Mhm.
But yeah, just, I mean, I comics haven't gone away, but again, they're disappearing, and I think that's a pity. I think comic books were a very important part of American literature for
Mhm.
years, and I guess I'm just doing what I can to try to keep the spirit of them alive
Yeah, no,
in a
I
limited
agree,
way.
and I know that Aaron from Cult of Cinema does the same thing. He's very much into that kind of stuff. So it's good that you guys are like, keeping everybody informed of either, your favorites or what might still be out there, or something of interest. So and I know there's a lot of comic book fans, so like that's a good thing about that.
Mhm.
Now, when I was perusing your channel, like I have to go back and watch these because I have not watched them, but I was so interested on a couple of reviews, because one of them I know Neko and I really love, and I don't know if she ever saw the other one. She might have, but the fact that you did a review for a movie that I don't hear many people talk about called Snow Beast, I think that's amazing, because I remember being terrified as a kid watching that when it came out on TV back in the 80s or 70s. I can't remember which era, a decade that was, but
I want to
oh
say
man.
78. I want to say 78.
Yeah, I think it was a late 70s TV movie, and it just scared the shit out of me. But
That
I
was
still
the
enjoy it. I went back. It doesn't necessarily hold up, but like I still like the fact that it still kind of gives you the chills.
well. It was interesting because what they tried to do is it's almost like they were trying to combine two different genres. They were trying to combine um, the whole Bigfoot subgenre with the old Irwin Allen disaster films. Like they were really
Yeah.
shooting big, and I don't know if they kind of hit on either one, but it's the old gimmick. Go big, go home. You
Yeah.
have to give it to them, and that was actually intended as part of a series. The 50 features of creatures. Someone had actually given me as a gift a box set of old, because I still play DVD, as you know, an old box set of old vintage, mostly made for TV sci-fi horror movies. And that was intended as the first installment. And truth be told, I just got away from it. So thank you for reminding me. I really should put out installment two at some point in the not too distant future.
No, and that's a great point, because there was other movies at the time for TV that people are starting to become more aware of now. But you had like The Car,
Um,
Devil Dog,
mhm.
um, Beneath the Bermuda Deaths, stuff like that. So like there was a lot of TV for made for TV movies that were just amazing, that only now people are kind of like checking out and oh yeah, I remember that as a kid. You know, I saw that.
I love Bermuda Depths.
Yeah,
That giant sea turtle
yeah,
actually scared me as a kid, and it's
oh
got an
yeah,
amazing cast: Connie Selica, Carl Weathers,
yep.
other people,
Other people.
other people. But yeah, I love Bermuda Depths. And there's another one. Now, Bermuda Depths you can't find on YouTube. You could. They took it down. Still copyright issues on a lot of these old things. But Intruder Within. Have you heard me talk about The Intruder Within?
No.
You got to check this out. It's an Alien ripoff,
Okay.
but instead of it taking place in outer space, it's a deep drilling oil rig which stumbles upon a clutch of prehistoric lampreys which
Oh
have
wow.
mind controlling abilities, and it's very schlocky, but it's very atmospheric, very creepy, and a lot of fun. And do you remember the short-lived War of the Worlds TV show from back in
Yeah.
the 80s?
Yeah.
The mom in it, whose name Green, I think her name is, but
Okay.
she's in it. She's in it as well, and Chad Everett and a few other people. You'd say, "Oh, he was." That's the funny thing about these old '70s made-for-TV movies. It's like you see actors from everything else, like, "Oh, he was in Welcome Back, Carter," and
Yeah.
"Oh, he was in Car 54. Where are you?" And I love those old movies, and they're making something of a comeback.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I remember about 10 or 15 years ago when I started remembering about the Bermuda deaths. And I was like, I went looking around to see if I could find it. It was not on DVD or anything. And there was this big petition from fans to get it put on DVD.
Mhm.
And eventually it did. Now, I'm not sure they may have gotten it to Blu ray now, but I have a DVD. It only plays a certain region code, but when they finally got it, like it was a lot of it was due to that petition. People were like pushing, like, dude, this needs because some people had trying to take it from VHS and put it on YouTube, and it was just so grainy. I mean, but I appreciate the hard work of doing it because people needed to see the film. But they finally got out their asses and got it on DVD, and that was a big deal. So if you're looking to get it, you know.
And that film was produced by Rankin Bash,
Mhm.
the same people who brought you Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Right.
I
Yeah.
love that factoid.
Yeah. It's so awesome.
Yeah, they actually did a few made-for-TV movies with a Japanese production company. If you've heard of The Last Dinosaur, that was one of theirs as
Yes.
well.
Yeah. Yeah. There was another review you had. This is the one that Nick and I really dig. The Stuff.
Ah, yes.
Chocolate chip Charlie, baby.
I actually
Uh,
saw the stuff in the theaters
oh
when I
wow,
was in
I
high
didn't get
school.
that. I saw it
Yeah,
later on, but
yeah, no, I actually saw it in the theaters, and it's one of those movies that nobody got it at the time,
right.
but in retrospect has a huge cult following.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
also very relevant to consumers.
Well, I'm very glad you enjoy it. You can't see it. I'm actually holding it up. It's actually right here on my computer table. So,
Nice. Yeah,
but I'm so glad you
the
enjoyed.
poster work was always creepy as hell. I think I was about
Hmm.
14 or
Hmm.
15 when it came out. So like I was like, man, that looks creepy. You know. Then you finally see it. Now, of course, now it's kind of very funny to watch. And it also had who's the actor from Law and Order in there now?
Moriarty.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so
Moriarty.
like, and he was also in Q, the Winged Serpent, which was kind of cool.
He did a lot of Larry Cohen movies. Actually,
Yeah,
I believe that they were very good friends, and they collaborated on a lot of stuff. And he was in that as well. And of course, when you watch the stuff very very closely, you're like, oh, there's what's his name, and oh, that's her name. If you look really, really closely, the scene where the kid goes nutcase in the supermarket and starts smashing everything with the broom,
yeah.
Eric Bogosian is the shopkeeper who tries to stop him from breaking everything. And he doesn't even have a line. You just see him running after this kid. And I'm like, oh my God, that's Eric Bogosian, who also did Law and Order now that I think of it, didn't he?
Maybe
One
I
one of the
not entirely
incarnations.
sure, but yeah,
There were
probably.
so many of them.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to do this little segment here. It's called putting you on the hot seat.
Ooh, I love segments.
So I'm going to ask you just a few questions, and some of them are more like kind of direct answers, and some are like you have to choose one of the two. So the first one, and to me, there's only one true answer to this, but I'm curious. Your favorite Star Trek movie?
My favorite Star Trek movie.
Yes.
My favorite Star Trek movie, and only one. Well, it would have to be an even numbered. That I'm sure we could all agree on.
Yes. Yes.
I would have to
You're off
say,
to a good start.
yeah, I would say Star Trek 2.
Thank you. Yes, he's my man. All right, Wrath Khan.
Indeed.
There is no other, but yeah, I think the Undiscovered Country is just as good, and the fourth one as well. Your favorite actor or actress?
Of all time?
Yeah.
My favorite actor or actress of all time would now. Can I qualify it just a second? And I'm not stalling. Would it have to be the best or the one who's just my favorite?
Your favorite. Your favorite.
Humphrey Bogart.
Okay. You have an actress?
Oh, favorite actress?
Mhm.
Yes, my favorite actress would have to be. Oh, honestly, I'm trying to narrow it down at this stage, but my favorite actress would probably have to be really Meryl Streep.
Okay.
She's just amazing in everything you see her in.
Yeah, Neko digs her too. Um. All right. Favorite Christmas movie: Die Hard or A Christmas Story?
Ooh. Now that you threw me a curveball there, I thought you were
Yes, I did.
my specific favorite. But if you want my favorite of those two,
Mhm.
I'm sorry, it's a major award. I'm gonna have to go with Christmas Story.
Okay. This should be right up your alley. Tora, 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 or Saving Private Ryan?
Tora, Tora, Tora.
Yes. Dawn of the Dead 78 or Zombie?
Oh, shit. Dawn of the Dead 78.
Vampire Hunter D or Ghost in the Shell?
Ooh, agony of choice, but Ghost in the Shell.
Okay. And then the last one, Tales from the Dark Side, the series, or Monsters, the series?
Ooh, toughie, and it's even tougher because I'm terrified that the one that is my favorite, I'm actually confusing, will be from the other series. But I'm gonna have to give it to Tales from the Dark Side.
Good choice. Yeah, both are good. But yeah, Tales from the Dark Side. That
Yes.
intro music is still classic.
Oh, I know. The intro was half the fun.
Oh yeah, yeah. There was another kind of series. I don't know. Wasn't really a series. It was just like a movie called The Big Chill Theater. I don't know if you had that where you were, but I remember that kind of
Not
fondly.
familiar with it. Not familiar with it.
All right. So, what is the favorite thing about doing this channel for you? Like, what is it that you get the most out of doing this channel?
Honestly, I'm one of those people where contrary to popular belief, my mother in particular, I don't like to just sit idle. I don't like to just like let the world go by without me. And sometimes I really want to do something creative. Now, unfortunately, I was not blessed with an artistic streak. I couldn't draw a straight line with a ruler.
I'm the same
um,
way. Don't feel
yeah.
bad.
So I'm not somebody who could go out and paint or can like build birdhouses and then paint them or or do things creatively that way. But what YouTube did was it gave me an outlet. It gave me a way that I could actually reach people, that I could actually touch people. And I'm not saying that I've changed the world, but every now and then I'll get some really nice comments saying, G Thrash, I was having a bad day and you made my day. G Thrash, watching one of your videos, it's like having somebody to talk to. You know, people actually get some value out of what I'm doing. And the fact that I can actually post creative things, at least something that's inside my wheelhouse, as it were, and the fact that people can get some enjoyment out of it, it really makes me feel good. It really makes me feel enfranchised.
Yeah. If you could, what kind of advice would you give to any upcoming YouTubers or people that want to dive into this type of entertainment content? What kind of advice would you give them?
Very simple. Don't give up.
Yeah.
If you think in 2 weeks you're going to be discovered by Netflix and then they give you your own show, you got
No.
another thing coming.
Yeah.
You know,
It's a lot of work.
it's
Yeah.
it's a tremendous amount of work, and it's going to be a long time before you see a return. But if you're having fun with it, that's all that matters. Just keep doing it, but be patient. People will find your channel. Just but don't give up just because you get discouraged. I think these days people get discouraged very easily, and they'll throw in the towel too soon. And it's like canceling a show before it's found its audience, which the networks do all the time, and it's stupid. And I'm not saying it's stupid to quit. I'm just like saying please don't. Just keep trying and just keep having fun with it.
Yeah, as you said earlier, it's like it's more important to start off by allowing it to be like a hobby and something you just enjoy doing. And then if you get monetized, and that's always a bonus, but really it should be for the love of wanting to do it, because as you talk with a lot of your fans and your followers and chats and stuff. So that's a kind of like environment that you want.
And definitely.
So where can people find you?
Well, the best place is on my content channel, Thrashpondo Pons, right here on YouTube. And I do also write for Gamelon Online Magazine. They can find me there.
Awesome. I will definitely provide those links, as well as
Thank
make sure you give me a link to your merch and stuff so I can post that on the description as well. Thrash, thank you for joining me, man. It's been a pleasure. A lot of fun. Hope to do this again with you, and definitely we need to get together and do some movie stuff, talk. I don't care. Maybe talk about those 70s TV movies or something.
Count me in. Count me
Yeah.
in.
Yeah. So we'll work that out. Hang tight, sir. For the rest of you
Will do.
watching this, hope you enjoyed this interview. It's been a blast. Hit the like button for me and subscribe if you would. If not, that's okay. I'm not going to hate you for it. Other than that, thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your day. And again, Thrash, just hang around for a minute and then I'll let you go.
Will do.
All right, everybody. Enjoy your day. Take care of yourselves.
You see me for you.